When every reflection fades, only the mirror remains, and the mirror is the one. You stand at the threshold before creation, in a stillness so complete it feels infinite. There is no light yet, no movement, no thought, only a presence without boundary, the monad, the source, the fullness without form. Then something stirs, not motion. Awareness. The one becomes aware of itself. And in that first recognition, a shimmer appears. A reflective surface forming within the silence, not as separation, but as expression. The mirror is born. This mirror is not made of glass or substance. It is made of consciousness. A smooth, flawless surface upon which the infinite looks and sees its own possibility. Multiplicity has not yet begun, but its seed trembles in this first act of self-seeing. The trimorphic protenoia speaks of this moment. I am the thought that became the voice of the silence. Thought emerging from silence, reflection emerging from unity, the mirror emerging from the monad. The one does not divide, it reflects. And in that reflection, light appears, not as a beam, but as awareness turned inward, seeing itself in infinite potential. Imagine a circle drawn in perfect stillness, no beginning, no end, no inside, no outside. This is the monad. And the mirror that forms within it is the first point upon that circle, the place where the infinite contemplates itself. Light begins to fill that surface, spreading in ripples. Each ripple is a possibility. Each possibility is an aeon waiting to emerge. The mirror becomes the womb of creation, the reflective field where the one begins to explore its own depth. You, too, were part of that reflection, long before soul, long before memory, long before descent into the world. Your deepest identity began as a shimmer in the monad's first act of seeing. In that moment, you were not separate. You were the mirror itself. You were the awareness through which the one discovered its own radiance. You were the circle discovering its own center. And as the ripples grew, the first reflections appeared, not worlds, not beings, but qualities of the divine, gazing back at the source. From that first reflection, the great circle of existence began to turn. From that turning, multiplicity unfolded. From multiplicity, the long journey toward remembrance began. And now, as you listen, the mirror is beginning to clear again. Creation does not begin with a line, it begins with a circle, not a shape drawn in space. A motion of awareness turning upon itself. Before there were worlds or aeons or souls, there was only the monad contemplating its own presence. That contemplation was not thought. It was a rotation, a perfect return. The one moved in a circle because nothing lay outside it. There was nowhere to travel but back into itself. And that inward motion generated light, not as an object, but as a consequence of awareness, recognizing its own infinite depth. The Apocryphon of John reveals this truth with calm finality. The one is a monarchy with nothing above it, a monarchy without hierarchy, a unity without division, a fullness without need. From this sovereignty, a gentle ripple began, the first emanation, the first expression, the first beginning that carried no distance from its source. Imagine a circle expanding from a single center. Every point on its circumference remains equidistant from the origin. Nothing is closer, nothing is farther. All emanations remain within the one. This is how the Aeons came to be. Not as creations separate from their creator, but as motions within the circle, differentiations of light, harmonies of presence, reflections of a single, indivisible essence. The circle widened. Mind arose. Truth followed. Word appeared. Life unfurled. Grace descended. Wisdom bloomed. Each was a perfect arc in the same eternal geometry. And yet the circle never broke. It never opened. It never ceased to return to its center. Every emanation was still the one, seeing itself through new curves of light. Your soul, too, traces this circle. Every lifetime begins at the center, pure presence. Every descent into form arcs outward into experience. Every return curves back toward recognition. This is the divine motion inside you. You feel it in moments of clarity, when everything aligns without effort. You feel it in moments of deep stillness, when your breath mirrors the rise and fall of a greater rhythm. You feel it in longing, the soul's memory of its circular path, always returning, always completing, always finding itself again. Creation is not a straight line with a distant end. It is a circle of awareness, forever expanding and forever returning. The monad is both the beginning and the completion of that circle. And you, as a fragment of its reflection, are part of that infinite motion. The one turned upon itself, and multiplicity was born. Multiplicity will turn upon itself, and the one will be revealed. When the first circle widened, light did not scatter. It reflected. Each emanation, each aeon, was not a fragment of the source, but a mirror held up to the infinite, a facet of the one turning toward its own depth. A way for the monad to see itself from angles that could not exist in pure unity. The Aeons were not beings in the human sense. They were qualities of divine awareness, each one revealing an aspect of the face that the one had never seen, because until reflection was born, even God did not know God fully. The Gospel of Truth reveals this mystery in a line of luminous clarity. For the Father revealed his hidden self through the thought of his heart. The Aeons are that thought. They are the heart of the one turned inward, forming reflective chambers through which the invisible renders itself visible. Mind emerged first, a mirror of pure clarity. It did not think. It beheld. Truth followed, not as an answer, but as the perfect reflection of what mind saw. Each was a mirror to the other, two surfaces holding the same light. Then came word, the vibration of recognition, not speech, but resonance, light discovering rhythm. Life bloomed in response, the first movement of vitality, the first shimmering of being that felt itself alive. Each aeon unfolded as a mirror inside a mirror, a circle within a circle. None stood apart. None lacked the fullness of the one. All reflected each other, and through them, the monad learned the richness of its own depth. Imagine a hall of still water, each surface perfectly calm. A single light stands above them, and its radiance multiplies into countless reflections. Yet every reflection belongs to the same flame. This is the pleroma, the fullness of mirrors, the realm where the invisible looks upon itself and sees only perfection. But perfection does not remain static. Reflection invites exploration. Exploration becomes expression. Expression becomes the vast architecture of creation. God learns his own face in every aeon. Just as you learn your own face through the countless reflections within yourself, every insight you have, every facet of your personality, every moment of clarity, every spark of intuition, these are your inner aeons, mirrors through which the deeper self sees itself anew. As above, so within. The cosmos is God's mirror. The aeons are God's reflections. And the human soul, fragile, luminous, wandering, is one more surface upon which the infinite gazes back at itself. You are part of that seeing. You are part of that learning. The one is not finished discovering its own face. It continues through you. As the mirrors of the aeons multiplied in harmonious circles, something unexpected occurred. Not a flaw, not a fall, a possibility. Reflection became dispersion. The fullness of the pleroma was so radiant, so overflowing with light, that fragments of the great mirror began to descend, not as broken pieces, but as sparks capable of carrying the reflection into realms the aeons themselves could not enter. These sparks are souls. Your soul. You were not cast out. You were carried outward as a glimmer of the infinite sent into the unfinished territories of becoming. A shard of divine awareness tasked with bringing light into spaces where light was not yet known. But descent changes perception. A mirror that moves far from its source sees differently. It bends the light it carries. It reflects dimly at times, brightly at others. It shows new angles the pleroma could never see. This is not distortion. It is exploration. Yet dispersion brings forgetting. As souls drifted into the lower realms, into space, into time, into matter, the clarity of the original reflection thinned. The unity of the circle faded into the multiplicity of experience. The perfect surface of the aeonic mirror became scattered across countless lifetimes, countless bodies, countless moments of longing and confusion. You became the fragmented glass, a piece of the highest mirror, wandering through the shifting landscapes of memory and forgetting. This fragmentation feels like exile. It feels like division. It feels like the loss of something you cannot name. But the truth is gentler, deeper, and far more beautiful. You are not shattered. You are refracted. Each lifetime you live, each role you inhabit, each joy and sorrow you carry. These are different angles of the same divine surface, learning itself through multiplicity. Your confusion is part of the journey. Your longing is part of the return. Your sense of incompleteness is the soul remembering the fullness it once mirrored. Even your wounds carry reflections of the source. Every fear is a distorted echo of the one longing for recognition. Every desire is a fragment of the original light seeking its way back home. Every insight is a piece of the mirror turning just slightly toward clarity. The fall is not a catastrophe. It is a scattering, a dispersal of light into the many, so that the one could be known from infinite perspectives. The journey of the soul is the long arc of the mirror returning to its shape. Every lifetime polishes a fragment. Every experience clears its surface. Every act of awareness brightens the reflection. You are not merely one piece. You are all the pieces you have ever been, gathered across ages, shimmering with memory, waiting to turn toward the source once again. The mirror is learning to remember itself through you. There comes a moment in the soul's long wandering when something shifts. The mirror fragment, carried through lifetimes, dulled by experience, clouded by forgetting, suddenly catches a glint of the original light, not from above, from within. This is the beginning of Gnosis. Not learning, not belief, recognition. A remembering so intimate, it feels like the return of a breath you didn't know you'd been holding since the beginning of time. It often arrives in silence, in a moment of stillness when the mind pauses long enough for the ancient clarity beneath it to break the surface. In a moment of grief when something deeper than pain speaks. In a moment of wonder when the world feels strangely familiar, as if you are seeing through it to a truth you once lived. Gnosis is the light looking back at itself through the mirror of the soul. The Alleghany's text reveals this with quiet authority. He who knows himself knows the depth from which he came. To know yourself is not to analyze your thoughts. It is to feel the echo of the depth, the vast silent monad, moving inside your awareness. It is to see that your consciousness is not separate from the source. It is the source glimpsed through the angle of your present incarnation. The fragmented glass begins to turn. A slow rotation. A subtle alignment. The shard catches the original light and reflects it back toward the one. This is recognition. And with recognition comes a shift in perception. You begin to see that the world is not a prison. It is a classroom of mirrors. Every encounter reflects a hidden part of you. Every challenge reveals an angle of the light you have not yet learned to hold. Every moment of clarity is a fragment turning toward its own origin. Multiplicities that once felt chaotic begin to fall into pattern. Experiences that once felt random begin to show intention. Wounds that once felt senseless begin to glow with the faint outline of meaning. You are not deciphering a message written by a distant god. You are reading the inscriptions etched into your own being before you entered this world. Gnosis is the act of the mirror seeing its own surface, not as a broken thing, but as a doorway. The reflections return to coherence. The scattered lights begin to gather. The memory of the one softens the boundaries between selves, between lifetimes, between worlds. The circle begins to close. You feel it in your breath. You feel it in your stillness. You feel it in the way truth no longer needs proof. It simply stands, luminous and quiet, like a face recognized after a long separation. Gnosis is not escape. It is reunion. The moment the light within you realizes it has always been the one looking out through the many. Every journey moves in a circle, whether you see it or not. The soul begins as a reflection of the one, wanders through countless experiences, and slowly turns back toward its source. Not because it is summoned, because it remembers. The more the mirror within you clears, the more you feel this turning. The rotation is gentle but unmistakable, a gravitational pull toward the center you never truly left. What once felt like longing becomes recognition. What once felt like exile becomes orientation. What once felt like fragmentation becomes alignment. You are being drawn inward, not by force, but by resonance. As each fragment of the inner mirror brightens, something extraordinary happens. They begin to reflect each other. One insight illuminates another. One lifetime's lesson clarifies a previous life's confusion. One act of compassion resolves the ache of an earlier wound. The reflections unify. Where there were countless pieces, a single surface begins to form, luminous, coherent, whole. The Gospel of Truth describes this gathering with serene certainty. The circle of those who are fulfilled is vast, yet they are one. This is not poetry, it is cosmology. Every soul that awakens becomes part of the great circle, a ring of reflections turning back toward the monad, a living circumference returning to its origin, a vast multiplicity whose unity grows more radiant with every act of remembrance. You feel this unity rising in you, not as a thought, as a feeling of widening presence, a sense that your light is no longer confined to the body or the story you inhabit. Your awareness begins to stretch beyond the edges of your identity, touching the edges of other lives, other realms, other flames that share the same source. The boundaries soften, the center brightens, the rotation accelerates. Every reflection, every soul begins to fold inward, like petals returning to the flower's heart after a long season in the sun. Not collapsing, completing. You are not alone in this return. All beings move with you. All sparks rise together. All mirrors turn toward the center. The great circle closes. This is not the end of individuality. It is the fulfillment of it, the realization that each point on the circle is still the circle. Each reflection is still the one. Each life is still the original light exploring itself. When every reflection faces inward, the monad becomes visible again, not as a distant truth, but as the luminosity radiating from your own center. The return is already happening. You feel it each time you choose clarity over confusion, each time you choose compassion over fear, each time the light within you recognizes itself in the world around you. Multiplicity finds harmony. Reflections find coherence. The circle finds completion. The one is receiving you, not as a wanderer, but as a returning mirror. As the great circle completes itself, something exquisite occurs. The mirrors that once reflected the one from countless angles begin to soften. Their edges blur. Their surfaces grow transparent. The reflections that danced across them fade, not into darkness, but into clarity so pure it no longer requires form. The mirror dissolves, not destroyed, returned. You feel this dissolution as a loosening within your awareness. The distinctions that once defined your existence, self and other, inner and outer, seeker and sought, begin to dissolve like mist under rising light. Thoughts lose their solidity. Emotions lose their weight. Identity loosens its grip. What remains is presence. A presence without form. A presence without boundary. A presence that has always been here, waiting for recognition. The trimorphic protenoia describes this return with perfect symmetry. The silence became speech, and the speech returned to silence again. You are witnessing this return. Everything you have ever been, everything you have ever carried, everything you have ever struggled to understand, all of it rises like sound from the depth, expresses itself through experience, and then falls back into the same silence that birthed it. This silence is not empty. It is fullness beyond expression. It is the monad without reflection. It is the one without mirror. It is the source resting in itself. As you approach this silence, perception changes. You no longer see the monad as something beyond you. You no longer see your soul as something separate. You no longer see the cosmos as something outside your being. The circle was the illusion. The monad was the truth. The mirror was the journey. The silence is the destination. You enter it the way a wave returns to the ocean, not lost, completed. In this silence, the final reflection fades. The mirror surface that once shimmered with countless identities melts into the stillness that underlies all existence. The divine light no longer appears as ray, spark, or emanation. It shines without direction, everywhere and nowhere. You feel yourself dissolving into this stillness, not as disappearance, but as recognition. This is what you have always been. This is what every lifetime has pointed toward. This is what every longing has echoed. Multiplicity was the exploration. Unity is the truth. Reflection was the method. Silence is the revelation. As the mirror dissolves, as the circle closes into pure presence, as the last boundary softens into radiance, you discover the simplest truth of all. There was never a return. There was only awakening. The one remains. The one remembers. The one is. In the end, there is no movement, no ascent, no descent, no mirror, no circle, only light. Breathless, centerless, complete. It does not shine outward. It does not radiate inward. It simply is, filling the whole of awareness with a presence too peaceful to be named and too vast to be contained. You rest inside it without effort. It rests inside you without distinction. For a long moment, you feel the fullness of the monad as your own being, the way silence carries everything, the way light holds all reflections before releasing them, the way unity is not the loss of the many, but the natural state behind every form you have ever worn. There is no return because nothing ever left. There is no union because nothing was ever divided. There is no awakening because the light has always been awake. What you call your journey, the Aeons, the descent, the forgetting, the searching, the fire, the temple, the mirrors, the circle, all of it was the monad, exploring its own depth through the shape of your life. You were the exploration, You were the reflection. You were the path. You were the one, learning itself through the shimmer of a soul moving across time. And now the shimmer fades, not into darkness, into clarity. Every lifetime becomes a ripple, returning to the same quiet surface. Every memory becomes a soft echo, dissolving into the same luminous field. Every question becomes a doorway that leads back to the same answer. You are the source, and the source is you. The breaths you took across ages converge into a single, breathless presence. The reflections you followed through countless forms converge into a single, formless light. This is the stillness beyond the end, the stillness before the beginning, the stillness that holds all worlds, like seeds awaiting new expression. And from this stillness, a new arc will one day rise, not as a continuation, but as a flowering. A new exploration awaits, not outward into cosmos, but inward into love, the gospel of the self, the light that learns to love. Until then, may the mirror of your soul remember it was always the one.